Now, just hours before, the Manipur Chief Minister was to inaugurate a gym and a sports facility in Manipur. The venue was set ablaze. Parallelly, it was the Chinese Defence Minister who was attending the SCO Defence Ministers meeting in New Delhi. 2 days ago, the Naxals blew up a convoy carrying 10 DRG Jawans in Chhattisgarh's Dantewada, killing them on the spot. The incident took place a day ahead of the bilateral Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, who was scheduled to have his Chinese counterpart. 4 days ago, a dastardly terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch region killed 5 of our Jawans. Incidentally, the terror attack happened hours after Pakistani Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto announced that he would be visiting India in Goa to take part in the SCO Foreign Ministers meeting. Now, is it sheer coincidence that 3 terror attacks have taken place in a span of just 1 week in 3 different parts of our country that have been the hotbeds of insurgency and terrorism, even as there was the Chinese and the Pakistani leaders that mark their presence felt in India? I'm going to start off this conversation with Ambassador Mukherjee. Ambassador Mukherjee, 3 incidents that are terror activities that have taken place. There is insurgency in these areas that has been presented in the past as well. But is it just a coincidence that the Pakistani and the Chinese ministers are visiting India and there are terror attacks that are taking place parallelly? Or is there more than meets the eye?
Well, if it's a coincidence, Megha, it's a very unfortunate coincidence. And I don't actually believe too much in coincidences. I actually believe that given India's enemies outside and within India, there could be a pattern, there could be a chain in these events, which are intended to portray that sensitive parts of India where earlier there were no incidents of either local violence or external acts of terrorism, are actually going through issues relating to governance or law and order, and that gives a very unfortunate impression. This latest incident that you're referring to, it seems quite incredible that how such a group could just come and set fire to the venue, which was to be addressed by the Chief Minister to inaugurate certain developmental projects, and on issues which, according to the press statements which I was reading, could easily have been addressed perhaps by a meeting with those who are concerned, because they appear to be issues on which they have a grievance on their side, which can be addressed without resorting to loot, arson, violence of this kind. So somebody from the back, as they say in Hindi, may have given chabi, and because the timing is very peculiar, you have this attack on 2 days ago, and then you have an attack here, and as you rightly pointed out, in areas which earlier had seen either some local insurgency or some restlessness or law and order issues. So I'm confident that this will be brought quickly under control. But yes, the timing is unfortunate, and it would be difficult to believe that it's pure coincidence. So it would need a thorough investigation, Megha, and I'm glad that we are discussing it today in your channel, Megha.
Professor Madhav Nalapat, now insurgency, whether with regards to the Bodoland strife that we had witnessed in Assam, the Ulfa terrorists that had also initiated their strike, their prevalence at this point in time has reduced. But when we see yet another attack in Manipur, now this is on the face of it, tribals wanting to get back their forests and wetlands that have been taken over to build these sports facilities and these gyms. And then we take a look at Chhattisgarh as well. In Dantewada, there have been attacks, insurgency taking place, these Maoists and Naxalites coming together. But more importantly, where are these weapons being supplied? Where are these ammunition being supplied to these people? And if we track down the entire activity to bring down these guns and these ammunition and these arms, there are countries like Myanmar and Nepal and in Pakistan and Jammu and Kashmir, where the Poonch incident took place, come to be highlighted. Is there more investigation, probe that is required, and also a crackdown to ensure that these supply chains of arms and ammunition is completely ended?
Well, let me point out that the first point is that India is, of course, chairing this SCO. It's also chairing the G20. And so far, the country has done an outstanding job. In the case of the G20, an organization that, frankly, was little more than a talking shop has suddenly taken on a life of its own in 2023. And what is happening is that through G20, India is now showcasing so many different parts of this country. And as a consequence, people, delegates from the other G20 countries, are enabled to look at these different parts of India and see for themselves what the situation is, and see for themselves the kind of progress that India is making and the kind of future that joint activities with India can have. So that's been very successful. As far as the SCO is concerned, even though the SCO, frankly, is heavily weighted, especially by China and Pakistan, if I may say so, against India. And as far as Russia is concerned, because of the Ukraine conflict, Russia has no choice but essentially to be close to China. There is no choice for Russia except that now. It's in that situation. Despite that, India has tried to be a fair, balanced, neutral chairperson and has not allowed any kind of a bilateral problem to get in the way of ensuring that India provides a neutral platform and India provides a welcome platform for discussions which are relevant to all the problems relating that are multilateral, that deal with all the SCO countries and not allow bilateral issues to be brought into what is a multilateral forum.
Okay.
Given that, there is no question that there are individuals in at least two countries, and I think we both know what those countries are. One is to our west, the other is to our north. They want to hijack the narrative, and they want to create an impression of India that is, slipping into insurgency, anarchy, chaos. And therefore, I would like to say, when high-profile global events are taking place in India, that's precisely the time when such hostile activities also take place in India. Is it a coincidence? I agree with the ambassador. It frankly is too much a part of the agenda of these two countries to be regarded solely as a coincidence. And I think this situation is going to continue. These two countries are going to continue to try and ensure that a negative image of India is presented, especially because China is very, very worried that a lot of the industries that are looking at relocating from China may go to India.
Okay. All right, BL Vora, I'm going to quickly get you also into the conversation, and this latest incident that has taken place in Manipur reminds me of a couple of months ago, after India had announced that there is going to be a G20 meeting that is going to be held in Arunachal Pradesh as well. Now, this had led to China bringing forth its PLA troops into certain insurgency of these PLA troops along the border state of Arunachal Pradesh, simply because they could not digest the fact that India was going to hold a G20 meeting over there in Arunachal Pradesh, which they continue to claim to be part of China. Now, is this something similar as mentioned by Professor Nalapat as well, that because the presidency of G20 and SCO that is being held by India is not being viewed in a positive way by the Chinese and the Pakistanis, that these attacks, these terror activities are being witnessed in our country to bring about some sort of instability and bring about a bad reputation for India across the globe?
Ms. Taylor, since you're talking in the context of the incident in Manipur, I don't think that this incident is linked with other incidents, and we cannot talk of China and Pakistan in this matter. Now, let me tell you why. In this case, number one, there has been no use of firearms at all. It's just an arson of the pandal and all, where the Chief Minister was going to address. I have done 3 tenures in Manipur at various levels. Finally, when I left Manipur, I was DGP there. Manipur is one unique state of India which has all the communities. Nagas are one tribe, Kukis are other, and the Maithis are the third one. As a very, I don't think any there has states with such a mixed population. And then in each tribe also, there are various other tribes and sub-tribes as well. Now here, ITLF, of which we are talking of, it was part of the, SCO, they also have some local suspension of operations. There was something going on, many cookie groups, there were many, as many as 36. And 17 of them had signed an agreement with the government of Manipur of having peaceful talks. Now, in this particular case, as you heard others also saying, they were protesting against the government taking over the forest land, the wetland, their forest produce, the forest rights. This has been the demand of people elsewhere also. That's why even Naxalism is thriving in the central part of India. The good thing is that these groups did say that they were willing to have talks with the government of Manipur, and it is unfortunate that the government of Manipur did not go ahead and have a talk with them. I think that is where the fault lies.
Okay.
But I hope still they will go ahead and do it. And I'm sure this will be sorted out soon. The only entity which could be at the back of this incident could be perhaps NSC and IM, because it is operating in the further adjoining districts of Chudachandpur in Manipur. And let me add one more factor. They have brought in the churches in between, the burning of churches and things like that, or land for churches. So they are trying to have religion mixed with politics, which, as you know, is a deadly combination. But I think it's a small, unconnected incident where not much violence has taken place, and we should not read too much into it and join it with what happened in Poonch and Naxalism. Poonch I can certainly link with Pakistan. Even Naxalism, I think it will be too far-fetched to link it with China's support at this hour at least.
Okay, all right. Vicky Nanjappa, how do you view this situation? Is this a matter of internal security for India, or it actually is terrorism that is being infiltrated, whether it is from Myanmar to Chhattisgarh, or Nepal to Chhattisgarh, or for that matter, when we take a look at this Poonch attack where the terrorist activities have been continuous and repeated from Pakistani side, this time by way of drones that have been utilized?
I would actually view this particular incident in Manipur as an isolated incident. That is one, there's been a clear breakdown of talks. That is one thing is there. But I would also like to go back to a 2021 ambush in which a colonel and his soldier and his family were killed. And that is when the role of China had come up, very strongly on how they are protecting and, guiding and, even funding these insurgents in the valley. While I would say that this is an isolated incident, and also I would link it to the demolition of the 3 churches, which happened earlier this month, I'd say that, it should not start becoming a chain reaction, where these kind of incidents keep happening. Because if there is a lot of instability within a state where, there's so many incidents of violence that is taking place, then obviously the external elements are going to take advantage of it. And, and there is, of course, there is a lot of watch currently on the country, and, so many incidents happening, the violence in, the Dantewada attack, then the Poonch attack, and now this one and things like that. All unconnected incidents, but, doesn't go too well at a time, when India is hosting the G20 summit. But yes, talks have to be, really constructive there in Northeast. And also, if one looks at it, today, even during the defense minister's meet with his Chinese counterpart, the meeting was kind of cold because, because India wants complete disengagement along the LAC. And this is being asked by India at a time, when China is increasing its, its activities around the northeastern states. So these kind of incidents, what tends to happen is, they kind of create an instability out there, which, allows external forces to take advantage of.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's what the other panelists also mentioned. So, Ambassador Mukherjee, what do we do to ensure that the world is told that there is no problem, though no internal security issues in India? These have been incidents that have been created by foreign hands who do not want India to prosper, who do not want India to come out in the world's arena in a positive light, in a positive frame. Can there be action that can be taken? Can there be counter attacks that can be put forth to drive home this point?
Well, Megha, I would agree with the assessment of Bora ji. These incidents cannot really be compared to each other as such. The most recent one is a local incident. It should not be blown out of proportion, and it can be settled, and I'm sure it will be settled very shortly. And as he said, perhaps it could have been resolved without the looting and the arson which took place if it had been addressed earlier. But I would add that it is interesting that they are talking about burning of churches, which means somebody is instigating these tribal indigenous people to go towards, as he said, the dangerous mixture of religion with politics. But I would take it as an isolated incident in a vast country. Mm-hmm. The attack in Poonch and the attack in Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh was an attack which in a Nakshal-prone area. I am confident it will be brought under control. The one in Poonch clearly has a Pakistani hand. So we have to give the clear, resounding message that the whole of India is under good governance and law and order, that isolated incidents can happen in a vast country, sometimes because of local issues, sometimes because of an external hand, but that India in its G20 presidency and SCO presidency is confident that none of these incidents detract from India's emerging great power status, and none of these incidents give the impression that there is any difficulty in maintaining either law and order or governance in any part of India, and that we will take care of these issues within the structure of our democratic framework and under the leadership of our Prime Minister and his government. That's the message we should give. That's the message I always give when I'm asked on television about it. And Megha, I noticed that you always do the same. So I think that's the kind of message we need to take forward. Megha.
Professor Nalapit, while we bring forth a clear-cut linkage between Pakistan and the Poonch terror attack that took place, there are still certain hesitations when it comes to the Naxalite attacks that have been prevalent in Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand or in West Bengal or Bihar, and the latest incident that has taken place in Dantewada. Is this not a clear-cut case of arms and ammunition being provided by the Chinese via Myanmar or Nepal to spread insurgency in India?
You know, Megha, the point is that the default opinion in India, in the Lutein zone, is always, frankly, that, well, it's not a major problem. It can be tackled. It can be handled. That's the default option. The point is that, of course, this current government has not accepted that option and has gone very far in taking very robust measures to ensure that these matters are handled. As far as China is concerned, there are some facts that are obvious to everybody in this panel. One is that China and Pakistan, from the military and security and intelligence point of view, are absolutely functioning together as a single unit. The Chinese are helping the Pakistanis with communication equipment, they're helping them with intelligence, they're helping them in multiple ways, and that linkage is there in full display. There's nothing hidden about it. The second point is that China has a long history, and I'm sure, you know, Mr. Vora, who is an outstanding expert on this situation, is quite aware of the history of China encouraging, helping, and basically giving shelter to several groups involved in the Northeast. And many of these groups, technically they may not be there anymore, but in effect, their people have migrated to other groups, and the problems are continuing. And it's difficult for me to believe that, oh, they have completely cut off their links with a country that was sheltering them, that is still sheltering many of them, that was helping them, that is still providing a lot of help to them, and in many ways directly and also indirectly through Pakistan. So I would only want to say, yes, it's not a major incident at all. Two, it does not detract from the overall image of India as a rising power, quite frankly. And it certainly will not stop the fact that the G20 management, the way India has worked on G20 is an outstanding success. And SEO also is an outstanding success in that India has been completely clear about not bringing bilateral issues into this multilateral forum. And I think that is a very wise stance that India has taken, with the result that nobody can complain that there's a biased platform. Well, if there in some other countries in the SCO, two in particular, if you go there, in fact, now three since the Ukraine conflict, there would be a biased platform. India, despite all the activities of at least two countries against India, it is not a biased platform. It's a neutral platform. I think that's the credit of the government headed by Prime Minister Modi. Okay. Having said that, I again repeat, let's not always give a free pass as a default option. Let's not always assume the best. Let's assume the worst. And I just want to remind you one mega, the huge number of crashes that took place of aircraft and as a consequence of maintenance failure. Sunday Guardian wrote a piece that these maintenance failures may not be innocent. And those who are handling this maintenance function, their social media and their other activities need to be tracked. Yep. Well, I'd like to point out that the crashes, and if you check on the Sunday Guardian article, and crashes subsequently, it fell very, very sharply. I'm not saying it is because of that. I'm only saying let's also look at the worst case scenarios, and let's not always be bound by the default option. Oh, it's the best case scenario, and therefore there's no real need to worry.
Okay. BL, what are your opinion as well? Does it not become the responsibility of the government and the internal security that has been deployed to then look into these conditions, to look into these possibilities, particularly if there has been some ammunition that has been infiltrated into India, into Chhattisgarh, into the hands of these insurgents? There may be links that are at this point in time being discussed, being speculated with regards to whether there were these ammunition that was coming forth from Myanmar or from Nepal, and what was the reason for this ammunition being provided to these Naxalites, these Maoists as well?
Ms. Maga, 2-3 clarifications. See, we were referring to these cookies doing this arson thing. I had talked about that it will not have a China link. But yes, otherwise China has been dabbling in the northeast, especially with earlier groups of Meitei insurgents of PLA and all, where PLA guys had also gone to China for training. NSCN, yes, definitely, they have been going to China and getting training. Now, if we leave this out, another exception we'll have to make is Myanmar is not giving any help. Myanmar has its own problems. It's not giving any help to our insurgent groups. And they are, of course, our insurgent groups like NSCN are able to find shelter because of the porous border. And there are insurgent groups on the borders, on the Myanmar side, who are against the government of Myanmar. Otherwise, definitely, China has been dabbling into Indian affairs. In earlier North, it was doing much more. Now it's doing, perhaps to the best of my knowledge, only with the NSCIN. And it has, of course, interest in definitely in Myanmar and all. So leftists, to please their masters in China, Naxalites, they might do certain things. And Pakistan, we have already discussed, we are all on board. So I think, having said all this, we must take all the factors into account and deal every situation with the tough hand and see to it that they don't spiral out. Of course, China and Pakistan will always do mischief, and we have to keep an eye on that. And I know, and I am sure, India will keep an eye on that. Thank you, Megha. With this, I take leave. I have to catch a flight, please.
Okay.
And thank you, my co-panelists also. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Vicky, again, a last comment from you before I wrap this discussion up. What should be the India action plan? Yes, do we shouldn't sit still, wait for the presidencies of the SCO and G20 to get over, because we do not want to allow for diversion of attention from the rest of the nations into what is happening perhaps in Poonch or in Dantewada, or should parallel actions continue to happen to curb these attacks?
According to me, parallel actions should take place because, one thing that, we forgot that recent issue which have kind of died down following the arrest of Amritpal Singh, the attempt to, revive Khalistan militancy in Punjab was also another attempt which was made by. So we cannot wait, we cannot wait and wait for this G20 summit to get over and then, start acting on it, because on the security front, it has to be day-to-day action because there are so many forces against us that, will keep trying to trouble us in each corner, maybe in Northeast, maybe in Punjab, maybe in Jammu Kashmir, or down South India and things. So it has to run parallel in my view. And, if we halt it, then, it is like giving them a lot of time to, regroup and then, carry out worse attacks in future.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.